Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all good? I hope so. Y'all, let's go ahead and get into part two. We're gonna meet Freddy. Remember, we was introduced to him in part one. You remember when Selena put Lewis out and he needed somewhere to go and he spent the night over Freddy's house? Okay, now we're gonna learn a lot more about Freddy, okay? So, late one night, Freddy heard some movement upstairs. His girlfriend noticed that he was sitting up and she asked him what was he doing. He told her to be quiet because he heard some noises upstairs. He eased out of bed and cautiously made his way to the stairs. He knew it wasn't his mother because her footsteps wasn't the usual slow movements. As he pressed the door open, holding his peace, he could hear at least two male voices. Freddy's heart was about to pound out of his chest, but he swung the door open. He could see shadows, so he pointed in that direction and let off three of them things. They fired back, and one flew close by his head, but it hit the door frame. One man jumped through the kitchen window. He saw one running down the hallway, so he let off another one and got that guy in the leg. Freddy jumped behind the sofa, and when he heard the front door open, he let off two more rounds. Then all of a sudden, the room was quiet. Freddy ran over to the door and locked it, but he heard a noise behind him. He turned and pulled the trigger again. Thankfully, the chamber was empty because if it hadn't been, he would have unalived his girlfriend and their unborn child. He told her to go back downstairs so that he could go check on his mama. He was so nervous because his mom was his everything, and he didn't know what he would do if something happened to her. He ran up the hall and softly called out for his mom. He rushed in, but his mom wasn't in bed. "Mom, down here." His mother was hiding on the floor beside her bed. He put his piece on the dresser and helped her up. He hugged her tight because tears were rolling down her cheeks. He needed to comfort his mom. "Was it another break-in?" Freddy was trying to control his rage, but he told her that it was. But he was happy that she was okay. Hours later, Freddy was pacing the floor because he had been waiting on the police for like 4 hours. His girlfriend, Kia, was getting nervous because he was still holding at Nina. So she asked him to put it away, and he did. "I'm so sick of this. Those fools had weapons. What if they pop you or mom or our unborn child?" He went over to Kia and told her that she couldn't stay there anymore. "Why? Where am I going to go? My dad is not going to let me live in his house." Freddie suggested that she go back to the dorms since she only had 1 year of law school left, but she didn't want to go back pregnant. Freddie didn't want to take the chance on her getting hurt, but Kia felt if Freddie and his mother could stay there, she could stay there too. Then he said that all of them should try to find somewhere else to go then. He looked back towards the door, but still no police. But then his mother walked into the living room all dressed up because she was on her way to an interview. "You ain't going to that interview? Those fools could still be out there." "Okay, I need to get this job, and I'm not going to let a bunch of thugs stop that." She walked over to Kia and rubbed her belly, telling the baby to wish her luck. "I should be home by 6. "Moms, I said you ain't going nowhere." That tone and that level of his voice made his mama stop in her tracks. She turned and locked eyes with Freddy and asked him, "What did you say to me?" Freddy knew he messed up. That voice changed quick. "I'm just saying, it's dangerous out there, and I got a job." "You do, Freddy. You do have a job, but it's not enough. I need this job. We are one partial payment away of getting the utilities cut off, and we can barely put food on the table. I live here too, and I know you're still carrying around the guilt about what happened to your father, and you're trying to fill his shoes. And it'll come, but until then, we just got to make it work in this awful neighborhood until we can find better. Okay?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. But let me tell you something. If you ever raise your voice like that at me again, I know. I'm sorry, Mom. I hope you get the job, but just know that you won't have to keep it for long." She gave him a kiss on the cheek and said, "I know, Fred. I know." Then the police finally showed up, and Freddy was trying to get the blood out of the grout lines. There were two black officers, a man and a woman. You let off a lot of rounds. Your piece registered? Yeah. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. And we're not the criminals. We're the victims. So are you going to find out who broke in here? The lady officer said they would ask around the neighborhood, but Freddy knew that was a joke. After the officers left, he went to Home Depot to get some supplies to fix the window, and then he went on to work. He worked with his uncle Henry. They were fixing up a house that Freddy convinced his uncle to purchase at an auction. Freddie and Lewis had done the majority of the work, and Freddie wished that the house was in a different area because if it was, he would have asked his uncle if his family could rent it. But he knew that his uncle didn't like him. He thought Freddie was crazy. And Freddie thought maybe he was. But regardless of how his uncle felt about him and what happened, Freddie knew at 8 years old his mama shouldn't have been beaten almost every night by his dad. He wasn't supposed to see her with black eyes and busted lips, and her thinking that he really believed her when she said she tripped over a chair or bumped into a wall. Even at 8 years old, he knew that was some BS. He remembered asking his mama one night why she let him do her like that, and all of a sudden she started crying and couldn't stop. She ended up sleeping in Freddie's room that night, as she did most nights while his dad worked third shift at the factory. To watch his mama fall asleep crying, that weighed heavy on Freddie. So the next day, he left school at lunchtime and went home. He could hear Lewis behind him asking him what were they doing there. You know your daddy gonna tear us up if he found out that we were skipping school. Freddie told Lewis to be quiet because his daddy was asleep. You just watch out for me, okay? You stay out here and you keep watch. So Freddie tiptoed into his daddy's bedroom. He grabbed the baseball bat from behind the door. His dad was deep in sleep, snoring loudly. And with both hands, Freddie raised the bat and swung with all the might that his 8-year-old body could handle. And when it connected, Freddie heard a crack. Later on, he admitted to knowing that it was the first blow that took his daddy up out of here. But Freddie kept swinging until his whole body was painted red. He swung until he couldn't swing anymore. When he walked out of that bedroom, Lewis almost passed out. And Freddie knew that his father's passing was the reason his mother could no longer sleep in the first floor bedroom. And he also knew that's the reason they were living in poverty. His mom would never blame him for it. However, he can see at times that she resents him for it. She resents him for how they are living. Freddie ended up going to a special school after that, and he was visited by social workers until he was 14. High school was a bit rough, but he made it through. He could never keep a job, but somehow his mom convinced his Uncle Henry to hire him. Freddie came in an hour early every day. He paid close attention to detail and every word his uncle said because he wanted to learn the trade of flipping houses as best he could. He was even taking classes to get his real estate license, and nobody knew about it. He had already taken the test. He was just waiting on the results. He vowed that real estate would be the job that turned him into a responsible man. And he knew no matter how horrible his father was, he was still his mother's husband. And he shouldn't have taken her from him. But Freddie was determined to make everything okay. He wanted to make everything okay for his mom, for his girlfriend, for their baby that was coming. And he really didn't care about how his uncle looked at him or what he thought about him. Only thing he was doing was learning. He just wanted to be there to learn everything that he could from his uncle so that he could start his own business. So what do y'all think about Freddy so far? Because we got introduced to him in part 1. Now we're starting to learn a little bit more about Freddy, which says to me that there will be more Freddy in this part of the series, right? To me, it seems like so far he tries to make things better for his family. Seems like he got a good head on his shoulders. He's working. He's going to school. He has a dream. Even though things are rough right now and where they live at is not a good place, but it just seems like he wants better. He wants to get a better situation for him and his family. So tell me what y'all think, okay? Get down in the comments. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. And I'll talk to y'all later.